Hi, my name is Nyla Wang, and I'm a first-year Queen's Commerce student at the Smith School of Business. So my transition from high school to university was generally a pretty smooth experience. We had an orientation week, it's called O week or Frosh week, and basically you have these group of upper years that kind of teach you how life is like at university, and they show you the ropes, they tour you the dining halls and things like that. And I thought that it was pretty easy to find people that were similar to me and make friends with people during orientation week. So if your future university ends up having one, I would highly recommend it. There were some things that I was surprised about in university life. One of the biggest things is that because Queens is kind of not really a commuter school, it is very, very community based, and it's much more like a community more than like a high school, because you kind of spend like all day with these people that you are friends with or that you know. So for example, you once you make your group of friends, you eat breakfast with your friends, you eat lunch with your friends, you spend dinner with your friends, you go to class, you say, hey, do you want to grab a coffee before class, things like that. And because you kind of live together, I found it more similar to kind of like an overnight summer camp more than like a school. So of course you have the classes and things like that, but overall it is much more open in terms of social life and things like that. In terms of the coursework and the course load at Queen's Commerce, it's honestly not too bad. If you didn't struggle with calculus or functions in high school, then I would say that it's honestly pretty fair. As long as you study, you should be doing fine in all your classes. For business in general, something that I was very surprised about is that there's a huge coffee chat culture in commerce. So honestly, there's people like coffee chatting all the time, as in like you're inviting an upper year or you're inviting a recruiter to have a chat with you if you have any questions with them. And honestly, in terms of business, I think business is much more of like a go-getter kind of program where it's like not as much academics based, but you need to have a lot of social connections and you need to make those connections and build them to be strong. And so that would be like a surprise to me. I think that if you are someone who likes making connections with other people, you would thrive in the business field. Some really important advice that I would give to students looking to apply to Queen's Commerce is to kind of build up your extracurriculars and your experience, because applying to a field like business, they much less focus on academics compared to your extracurriculars and your personality. The threshold for Queen's Commerce, I believe, was at least an overall average of 89, which isn't too high compared to how high averages are these days, 90s and things like that. But just because your average is high doesn't guarantee that you'll get into Queen's Commerce. For example, there's a lot of people that are rejected even if they have high 90s averages, and that's because they're mainly looking at your supplemental application. So the supplemental application process is like a video interview process where they ask you 2 or 3 questions, and usually it's kind of situational based or personality based. For example, I believe the question that I got was, if you were in a group or a team and 2 of your teammates were disagreeing and refusing to work with each other, how would you go about solving that problem? So usually they're just trying to test how well you are with people and like situational thinking, and they just want to know that you have a good personality and that they want to see you work with their other students in the program. Practicing a lot for supplemental applications, there are a ton of resources online for what kind of questions they might ask you. And when you're filling out your supplemental applications, I would recommend going, starting from the one that the school that you want to get into the least, and then leave school that you want to get into the most for the last, so you have the most practice to do so. If you know any family or friends that are in the business program, I would highly recommend talking to them. I think that you can get a lot of experience just by visiting campus. I think campus tours are actually really important, no matter what major you're planning on applying to. So make sure you tour your campus, because if you don't like your campus, you won't enjoy your university life. I think a very helpful tip was when I was in high school, we had a co-op program, and I actually got the opportunity to apply for a consulting position, and I took that in grade 12, kind of first semester of grade 12. But anyways, I was able to land a co-op position at a financial consultant, and I found that extremely helpful in terms of exploring what I want to do in the future, and that's why I decided that I wanted to become a consultant. And again, you don't have to know right away what you want to do in business. A lot of people kind of specialize in third and fourth year, so after you get into business, because you can specialize in all these different things like finance, consulting, risk management, accounting, etc. So you don't have to completely know what you want to do. I even considered and am considering doing law later on, so you can always veer past. Those are the tips that I would give. I think in terms of being in high school and being in control of your finances, it's probably quite a different experience than when you're in university. Because obviously in high school, I know some high schools have jobs, but finances are usually in control by their parents. So honestly, there's not a lot you can do in terms of investing and saving. But I think where I would start is probably learning how to budget. And I think if you learn how to budget and split your finances into how much you're going to use a week, how much you're going to use a day, what goal you're trying to save up for, then it can be really helpful in terms of transitioning over to university. Because you're going to be living on your own, it's important to know what you want to spend your money on and how you want to save it. And so I would definitely start with like creating a budgeting book or a budgeting or like downloading a budgeting app. There's a lot of really great resources online to learn how to budget for students and for beginners. And honestly, if you are starting to do that at all or even saving towards a goal, then I think you're already going in the right direction in terms of budgeting for students in high school.